Greetings, everyone. So, welcome once again to my Kingdom Hearts commentary project. And this is QA-san. So, before I'll get started with I believe we're in part 5 now, aren't we? Yes, before we get started to part 5, Olympus Coliseum, just a tiny bit of review regarding the previous world. So, the previous world that we went to was Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland. And basically, what happened there was Alice was kidnapped. That's basically the gist of Alice in Wonderland uh, in Kingdom Hearts. But with regards to the overall, I'd say the plot, the running theme in Kingdom Hearts, what Alice in Wonderland basically introduces is the idea of a world order, like maintaining order between the worlds and generally not causing any chaos outside interference uh, from within. What and this isn't just actually unique to. Okay, so sorry, I was checking if the mic was turned on, but this concept isn't actually just unique to Kingdom Hearts 1. It's always been a running theme, it seems, to almost every game, actually. If I recall correctly, that gets reintroduced in Kingdom Hearts 2, and doesn't really get introduced to Chain of Memories simply because Chain of Memories isn't really in the worlds. It was stuck in what was that? Wherever the land of departure was, Castle Oblivion. So that doesn't really. This idea doesn't go in there, but it's part of Kingdom Hearts 2. It's also part of Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'd say it was also part of Birth by Sleep and Days, I believe, because I believe Roxas and Co were told not to really mess much within the worlds, if I recall correctly. But yeah, the basic idea of the world order is sort of like, I'd say it's sort of like, kind of the supremacy of the law of the land. So Kingdom Hearts sort of introduces that at the beginning, right? But they don't really keep repeating those rules once we get further into the game. Because it's usually, I believe, the purpose of telling the idea for the world order at the beginning is to let the audience know, or the players. Well, I wouldn't say players. I would say the audience, to let the audience know, or at least you can catch it. Question whether the law of the land is supreme, or is there any other law that's beyond the law of the land? But in a sense, I think I forgot to mention it before, that doesn't mean that even though there's something supreme beyond the law of the land, an ultimate law, which is again related to ultimate reality, it doesn't really mean that the law of the land should be abandoned. I would say what it would mean is that the law of the land should be, I would say, subdued under what is ultimately right. That's why, if you've noticed, Sora and Co, when they attempt to interfere within the worlds, they don't really attempt to destroy the world order. In fact, they attempt to restore it, but they attempt to do it in such a way that it won't really cause a whole bunch of other chaos. So you see, that pretty much is telling us that although there's, again, a supreme law beyond the law of the land, we don't necessarily have to abandon the law of the land. We just have to like subdue the law of the land under that ultimate law of what is right and what is wrong. So basically, that's pretty much part of the reason they introduced that concept in the first world, the first easiest world, level 1 world, or level 1 star world uh, in Kingdom Hearts. But other than that, in some way, Alice in Wonderland is a sort of a fitting world. Because I would say, kinda, is the reason why it's fitting. Because in some way, it matches the pattern of, I guess, truly a hero's adventure. Or any other, not just hero's adventure, but in some way, it again refers to the concept of the fall of Eden. Back in Destiny Islands, Sora's world was perfect, and Traverse Town didn't really show much of these, but it kind of hinted it. But the idea of Eden is that people used to live in a perfect world, or certain characters lived in a perfect world, but eventually that perfectness doesn't last. So we get somewhat booted out from the perfect world and into a strange, unknown world. And Alice in Wonderland is very fitting, because Alice in Wonderland is a very chaotic story, I believe. The rules are left is right and right is left, I believe. Something like that. To the degree with Alice in Wonderland. And it's also very fitting that once once Sora leaves the courtyard, the Queen's courtyard, in search for evidences, he enters into a forest. Again, it's a running theme regarding the running pattern, that there's imperfection and there's perfection, and then being booted out of perfection and into the strange and chaotic world. And forest often symbolizes that. I mean, you've got Snow White, you've got Cinderella. Because that's where things are hidden in the forest. So in some ways, yes, Alice in Wonderland is a very good startup world in some sense, introducing to us a chaotic variable into into the world, I should say, into the understanding of the world of Kingdom Hearts. And it gets really obvious by the later games of how chaotic the Kingdom Hearts series is. I think this is where players, Kingdom Hearts fans, sort of would run amiss regarding Kingdom Hearts, is that Kingdom Hearts doesn't really believe completely in a very ordered world. That's why there's all sorts of various, I would say, chaotic, no, not chaotic, new concepts being introduced all the time. Because it's not usually, it doesn't, it wouldn't, the rule of Kingdom Hearts doesn't really stay in the same exact manner, I should say. But yeah, that's the nature of the story of Kingdom Hearts. That's why I'd say it kind of runs amiss, especially towards Western players, simply because the Western perspective regarding the world is that the world is a strictly ordered reality. I mean, it's true to some extent, but the problem is that it runs under the assumption that humans know everything. The point of chaos is that, although, yes, there's order in chaos, as I've mentioned in Alice in Wonderland, because true chaos cannot truly exist. As to the reason why it couldn't exist is that there's a fundamental thing within chaos. There's existence. So that in itself is already an ordered thing. It has some kind of purpose, I should say. I should really fix that argument regarding why chaos does not truly exist. But anyway, that's sort of the idea. Like, because chaos to us would be, I should say, the things that we don't really know or understand. And this sort, in some sense, the West sort of have forgotten this. This sense that we don't really know everything. Henceforth, or hence, there really is something chaotic within the world because we don't know everything in a sense. So if I were to describe chaos, chaos would be something we don't completely know yet. But once we unravel it, you can see an order within it. I'll try to get an explanation as to why chaos, true chaos, does not really exist. It was in the tip of my mind, but I keep forgetting what the reason was why it doesn't exist. It doesn't truly exist, the true chaos part. But it's related to discussion between ultimate reality, I should say. But I forgot the explanation. I'll get back to it once I put it down again in my notes. Anyway, let's proceed to Olympus Coliseum. So actually, Olympus, I played ahead a little bit, and it turns out I played ahead just to, just to get just to know what I'm getting myself into. But it turns out Olympus Coliseum is a short world, so I'll be. I should say I'll probably play Tarzan right after. I choked. I'll play Tarzan right after Olympus Coliseum because Olympus Coliseum is pretty much a short world. So yeah, I'll head right on to it. Okay, let's play. I forgot to mention. So an introduction regarding Olympus Coliseum. So it's based on the world of Hercules, and Hercules or Heracles, I believe that's how it's pronounced. But I'll go with Hercules because I'm much more familiar with that pronunciation. So Olympus Coliseum is based on the world of Hercules, and Hercules is he a Greek hero, right? He's not exactly a god, but the key point I want, and actually this is very fitting to the idea of ultimate reality, but a key point I want to make first is that the way people in the past in ancient Greece thought of heroes was different from what we thought of heroes. Basically, for them, well, for us, the idea of heroes actually, yes, it's very, very different from ancient Greece, and I just looked this up an hour ago, so I'm procrastinating with regard to my research. So, apparently, with our case, when we think of heroes, we think of people who saves others. And that's actually... ancient Greek people didn't think like this. This is actually very much rooted in... in a very Christian concept. The idea of saving others, protecting others, and generally defending against, or defending against evil, meting out justice. That's a very, very Christian concept. I think it's very rooted in the idea of knights, actually. Knights, like a mixture of knights and saints. Because saints are much more closer to the idea of being close to the divine, while knights would be the aspects, I would say the physical aspect, the things that the heroes do usually. But being closer to God would be like an all-powerful being, would be closer to the idea of saints. So it's like a mixture of saints and knights, with what heroes, as we understood heroes as it is now. But in ancient Greece, what they thought of heroes was that they didn't really expect them to save people. Not at all. They didn't think of them as someone who would save people, someone who would defend justice, as someone who... all the things I've mentioned before. What they think of heroes was, or what the idea of heroes was back in ancient Greece, according to those research papers I read, the procrastinating research I did, was that they thought of heroes as a means to contrast immortal deities. So immortal heroes would be mortals on a path to, I'd say, the divine as well, but that's basically what they were to the ancient Greece. They didn't really have the idea of, again, saving people and all that. And and the reason why this is important, by the way, is that for ancient Greece, and actually not just for ancient Greece, but for the rest of the ancient world, and even for pre-Christian societies, you could still see it back with the literature, back with the literature from Japan and China, prior to the invasion of the European world. You can still see that the idea of the immortal, the gods for the ancient people, was that they're not exactly kind, I should say. They're pretty much what would we be defining as evil as as it is now. They were cruel, utterly cruel. They would do anything what they wanted. That was what was immortal for the ancient people. So what the heroes were trying to achieve is anyone getting my reasoning here? But for the heroes in the ancient past who were trying to achieve immortality in some sense, but of course, I think the stories didn't really meant to achieve. Some of them really didn't really achieve immortality. I think there's always a tragic aspect there of being mortal. I mean, I'm not really too familiar with it, but you know, there's... I think it was Achilles. But disclaimer though, I'm not really familiar with ancient Greek stories other than I would say the only one that I'm really familiar with was Persephone. But anyway, the rest, it's more like I've got the general gist from their stories. But one example of a tragic hero would be, I think it was Achilles, right? So you sort of get the idea that not everyone can become immortal, and the idea of their immortal was utterly cruel. Although it's the way we used heroes now are very different from the way they understand heroes. The meaning of the general idea of heroes, I should say, runs the same actually. Heroes basically would mean what is the ideal state of man. So for people of the ancient past, the ideal state of man was being utterly cruel, being powerful, being a brute, utterly smart like Odysseus. I wouldn't say smart, but cunning, actually. Cunning as Odysseus, and if I pronounce his name right, and strong as Achilles. But something did change. No, that's not just something, but things changed right after. I wouldn't say right after, it took 2,000 years to get to this state. So by the time you've got the word hero now, the hero meant to us, our ideal state now is, the ideal state for man is someone who is a defender of justice, and someone who would save people, and someone who is should be doing what is good and not evil. And for that, it seems like our idea of immortality has shifted. In some sense, our idea of immortality is what is immortal for us right now is something that really stemmed from Christian beliefs. Someone who saves, someone who enacts justice in a way, and that is what is immortal for us in this era. So that's basically that difference between our understanding of heroes in the past and heroes in ancient Greece and heroes to us now. So I also want to comment about what. Actually, I should talk to Phil here.
ちょうどよかった。ちょっと手伝ってくれよ。そこの台座を向こうへ動かしといてくれ。大会までにここもきれいにしとかなきゃな。
By the way, I've already had that suspicion that people in the ancient past really thought differently regarding what heroes are pre-Christianity. I think it's only back in the 1900s, right, that heroes truly took on a different form. Because prior to the 1900s, I believe that would be saints. I would say saints and knights would be what was ideal, but I think I'm not gonna really start the religious war here. But I would just point out with regards to the Reformation that the idea of saints were to the West were sort of slowly abandoned. At least because America is, I believe. I did say I'm not gonna start a war, but whatever. I'm just gonna say what's on my mind. America is basically. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it before I lose my train of thought. So basically, America is composed, or it was built upon Protestant foundations, because America sort of started in a way where Protestant, let's say, most of the migrants in the 1500s, 1600s were Protestants running away, migrating, exiled, moving away somewhere where the Catholic Church couldn't touch them. So, in some sense, and the idea of one of the things with the Protestants is that they don't really believe in not all of them, because there are certain Protestant denominations that still believes in saints, but for the most part, plenty of them actually dropped the idea of saints. Them there were no. I'm not. I'm gonna say it. To them, in some sense, and that's why. This is why I think why sort of the West kind of diverged from the idea of attaining divinity. In some sense, it sort of got muddled up with the idea of uh, the idea of there's no such thing of such as saints, that there is no such thing that man can ever come close to divinity. Uh, Ooh, I'm gonna zip. Because, like I said, it really. Immortality, divinity, being one with infinity, it's always been a running theme within humanity. There's always. Almost every culture seeks that. Every culture. Every nations. Every culture. They all. They have that thing where they actually sought out what is truly eternal, and and that the eternal can smile upon, in some sense, mankind. That mankind can achieve it in some way or form, and I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with Protestantism, and the Catholic Church has really been not doing its. I should say, not doing it, or maybe because it is in the Catholic Church doctrines, but they don't really show it much these days that that is the goal. And they say it, they word it like this, that God became man so that man may become God. So that's sort of the goal. And one of the ways they also word it is like this, to become is like this, to become like children of God. That's basically the idea of theosis. I believe that's what the Orthodox churches teaches as well. But I don't really see this from Protestants. If there were, I'm not too familiar with them. But the way Americans presented it is that seeing as they stem from Protestant beliefs, they don't necessarily believe in this anymore. If there were, sorry, I didn't know. But that's my general understanding of what's going on with Christianity. Because the vast majority of Christianity, although Catholicism is still big, most of the English-speaking world, I should say, would probably fall under the idea of I'd say would fall under Protestantism. It's all a mishmash with that. But yeah. That's basically with regards to saints. I don't want to start a war, but just making a commentary. I mean, it could be wrong. Anyway.
ヒーローその小僧が
何がおかしいんだよ。俺だって戦えるさ。
こんなもの一つ動かせないようじゃヒーローと戦うとてもまあ力が強けりゃいいってもんでもないいいだろう試してやる
I'm ready. Was there supposed to be a trick to this? There you go. The rules are simple, what's all about? Okay, ready. I'm doing wrong. Maybe I should have started with that. What am I doing? Hi! Huh. Oh, did I miss something? Darn it! What did I miss? I'm not quitting. What did I miss? Okay, let's do this. Okay. Got that. Ah, that, okay, I made a mistake. There you go.
Yaるじゃないか、坊主。
これで俺も闘技大会に。
そいつはいかん。
なんで？
答えは二言。お前たちはヒーローじゃないから。
なんだって？
Funny. Wanna become a real hero? Start to mastering the spell. do things. Was that the only one thing, right? Wanna become start? Yeah, thunder. So we got two. I'm ready for the games. No entry pass. Oh, look at that. That's a heart. Symbolism. So our first Greek god, Hades. Ah, yeah, right. I mentioned it before. Again, heroes in general in for ancient Greece was again a contrast between mortality and immortality.
いやいや聞かなくたって君の言いたいことはわかるさ。大会に出場したいんだよ。
So Hades represents that death.
それじゃこれをあげよう。
Show the mortality of man, I'd say.
いいと思う。君の活躍。
Maybe you should have watched first the old Disney movies. 'Cause I really forgot what the stories are all about. And I've watched them when I was a kid, but it's been a while. Just take note of the mortality part, because I think it's very important. Okay, yeah, let's go. Some weirdos. Yes. We'll encounter him. After this. You guys think you know what I'm talking about. Why keep the idea of mortality in mind? Because that's also a running theme in Kingdom Hearts 2, I believe.
あのガキが決勝の相手だ。必ず始末するんだぞ。
死者の国の神ハデスが子供を恐れるのか。悪いが俺の契約は。
ああ、そうとも。お前の契約は大会本戦でヘラクレスの息の根を止めることだ。だが本戦に出るにはどのみちあのガキと戦うんだろ。あのヤギ親父もこう言ってる。ルール11、これはゲームだ。結果を気にせずぶち当たり。ゲームの結果がどうなろうと気にすることはない。王者より人気なやつめ。まあゲームの駒としてはあれぐらいがちょうどいい。
そんなものか。
そりゃ燃えろ。こったえっ燃えろ。
ここまで。
そうそう、もう一つルールがあった。ゲームにアクシデントはつきもの。
ビル、その子を連れて逃げろ。
いいか坊主、アドバイスは二言。いけー。
燃えろ。
Ha! Thanks for letting me know. I accidentally muted my mic. How did that happen? Whoops, whoops, whoops. My bad, my bad. So where was I? I was explaining about the Greek gods. Did you? But probably okay. I'm gonna start again with regards to the Greek gods. Thanks for letting me know, Breno. Dang it. And I muted. I was sure I didn't do anything. I probably accidentally pressed key, maybe on my keyboard. Yeah, so let's start again with the Greek gods. Maybe let me finish Cerberus first, because I'm out of magic points. But yeah, I'll keep in mind. Greek gods, Greek gods. Okay. I mean, I've got this here. Ah. Potion later. Really? It was mute the whole time? Holy shoot! I was sure it was turned on. Ah! Dang it all! Really? It was mute for the whole time? Ah. So wait, for the entire time I was mute. I was mute, right? And you entered around cloud. Let me recheck the video. Because I actually I already did a review regarding Alice in Wonderland. Oh man, and I explained what the tidbit of background regarding Greek, ancient Greek thought, and I was silent the whole time.
よってここにソラ、ロナルド、グーフィー3名をヒーローの卵と認め闘技大会への参加を許可するものである。
Boss fight the
お前たちはまだヒーローの何たるかを心得ていない。
Let me go check the stream first if I did.
それは
If I was silent the entire time.
そうしたようにね。
Let's see, let's
まあいい
see.
って大会で俺たちの実力を見せればいいんだろ。
さっきの騒動の後始末があるから大会が開かれるのはしばらく先になりそうだ。
それじゃあまた後で来るよ。
それにしてもよくあの坊主がケルベロスを倒せたもんだ。
ここだけの話、あの子が飛び込んできた時は僕が散々痛めつけたところだったんだ。
本人には黙っておこう。
Oh, it's the right timing. I actually checking on my checking on the previous stream. Seems like the silence started right after Cloud appeared. Great timing, bro. I actually was silent the moment you appeared. But prior to that, my voice was up, so that explained the whole thing with Alice and the Greek world. So with regards to... So actually, I mentioned it right before I was silent. So, to continue with my theme regarding commentaries with Kingdom Hearts and Ultimate Reality. So, with the case of Cloud, I mentioned before when Cloud appeared that take note that the Greeks, ancient Greeks, the idea of their hero was different to us. Again, for us, the heroes were, for us, modern heroes. The word heroes means entirely different to us and to them. The heroes for us symbolized saving people, defenders of justice, and all that. But with regards to the ancient Greece, they didn't really think of heroes as like that. What heroes ultimately represented to them was the mortality of man. That although he can achieve all these sort of feats, he may be still mortal. And depending on who the storyteller was, like for example with Hercules, there is a way to achieve divinity. And for others like Achilles, who wrote Achilles? Like I said, I'm not too familiar with the only familiar ancient Greek mythology, Greek myth that I'm really familiar is Persephone. But for the rest, I just got a general gist of them. But for the rest, especially from the summaries I read, Achilles, Odysseus, whoever wrote that, whoever was the poet for that, actually did think that immortality cannot be achieved, that ultimately man remains mortal. So there's that dialectic between the Iliad. So there's that dialectic between mortality and immortality for ancient Greeks. Homer. Yes, Homer. See, I'm not too familiar with them. I just have a general gist of what their story is. So, basically, for ancient Greeks, heroes are a sort of a representation of mortality and their attempts to become immortal. So why is this fitting with the concept with Cloud? In general, the Final Fantasy characters who appeared in the Olympus Coliseum is that although they didn't, the only one who actually fit the modern description of a hero is Zack, cheerful, defender of justice, genuinely doing the right thing. He's the only one who fit that concept. But all three actually represents much more the ancient concept. They represented man being mortal, especially with Zack. For Cloud, it is Zack. But for Cloud, it is Zack's mortality that gets to him, and sort of a running theme in Final Fantasy VII, I guess, because Aerith. So there's that story of mortality, Memento Mori, with Final Fantasy 7. The death occurs to all men. And there's Auron, yes. Yes, Auron. I didn't finish Final Fantasy X, but so I just read the summaries. But yes, there's that running theme of mortality with the characters that appeared, the original, not original, but Final Fantasy characters who appeared in Olympus Coliseum, and they matched the original Greek hero theme to it. So it's very fitting that the Kingdom Hearts staff added them here. It really did match their concepts. But anyway, that's that's what got muted. Part of what got muted while I was playing. And the other one that I believe that was muted was what the Greek gods meant for what the Greek gods meant in some sense, because in the modern perspective we're being taught that the ancient Greek gods or any other gods, mythological gods, were just a way to explain natural phenomena when the ancient people didn't really have a way to understand them. But I think that's, in some sense, it's a modern conception. Maybe people of the lower crust did think of that. Yes, right? I've only realized this, by the way, just today, while I was taking note of what Greek heroes meant to the ancient Greeks, not to us, or what heroes meant, to them. So there's that running theme of mortality. But anyway, back to the Greek gods. The modern conception of deities to us was to explain natural phenomena, but maybe that is the case for people of the lower crust back in the ancient past. But for the upper class, for the people of the upper crust, I don't think was that the intent. I don't know. So some of these, I feel like some of these are really subconscious rather than really intended. Maybe some are really intended, but subconscious things really run deep within humans. But still, back to Greek gods. I want to continue on that. I keep cutting off with my thought process. Anyway, so for the upper crust, the ancient Greek gods didn't really just represent an explanation for natural phenomena. For them, they represent a set of ideals, a set of standards. What is to them, because the ancient gods across not just Greece but across all cultures, for them the gods represent immortals, eternals. So basically, it's what humanity back in the day thought was transcendental. And you can really see the difference in thought process with what ancient people thought as what's ultimate. And that's the idea of their Greek gods. For example, Zeus. It's not the same as the one in Disney, by the way. What Zeus represented, you can clearly see what Zeus and other mythological gods look to us right now. They sound evil as hell. They do cruel things. So that was the ideal for, in some sense, the ideal for mankind back in the day. Their transcendentals just off. I believe really Christianity really did change a lot of things, because our idea for transcendentals now are very different from what ancient people thought back in the past. You can clearly see there's that cruelty there. Yes, Greek Zeus is not PG-13, definitely. Yes, the original, yes. They're very... It's not just ancient Greeks. it's really... Hey, Eduardo! Hi! Greetings! Hi, once again to my stream. But... continuing on my line of thought with regards to, again, the ancient past. People really... Things were really cruel then. It is really Christianity that turned around what is ideal to man. And the ideal started changing from being doing whatever you want, doing whatever you can, whatever you want. It's mentioned by a bunch of Christian historians. By the way, it's in my grounding video. Again, it's mentioned with Tom Holland that aside from doing whatever you want, even just having gosh, although back then with a PG-13, I'm more of a PG-13 person, so I try to censor my words. But people back then in the ancient past really did whatever they want, especially people who are in the seat of power. So things started changing when Christianity supposes that Christ is God. Because then, the idea of doing whatever you want didn't match the theme of what is immortal, what is God, to the people back then. So in some way it's strange, right? That our idea of what is immortal now, or what is eternal, would be a sort of self-sacrificing to do what is good. Yes, the past is not very PG-13. If you've watched my my review with the Destiny Islands and what was that in Traverse Town, I did mention what the what the Vikings do in their usual funeral. It's not PG-13 at all. It's utterly horrific. But anyway, that's pretty much it. What I want to say with regards to gods and the ancient culture. Again, things really did change. And I really attribute that to Christianity. Because in some sense, when I read Chinese works and Japanese works, that prior to the European invasion, their ideal was pretty much similar to ancient Greeks. It's really surprising. Ancient Greeks, or people of the ancient past in general, there's that cruel feeling to them. Yes, definitely not PG-13. It's utterly horrific. My face is not showing it because it's smiling. My avatar here, but yes. And that's why I'm very suspicious with the way the modern world thinks right now. Because they think by abandoning Christianity, we can be free. But it was Christianity that made the changes, by the way. That's where most of the reasoning and why we must not do things like that, do this and that. Most of the reasoning stems under Christian logic, I should say. So it's really suspicious. I find it suspicious with the atheistic movement in our current era. Because I don't think our values would survive without its foundations. That's what I think. I don't know what you guys think though.
誰よりも強くて誰にでも優しくピンチに颯爽と現れるおまけに甘いマスク完璧だ完璧なムカつまあいいこれで駒が揃ったわけだあのガキせいぜいラベースに鍛えてもらうがいい次のゲームで2人まとめて片付けてやるあんたは手を出すなよこれは俺のゲームだ
See, that's why we got hate here.
勝てるまで続けたらいいさ
It's pretty complex, definitely. But I think still most of our grounding, the modern grounding of what is good, what is right, human rights and all that, really did stem from Christianity. Because I cannot find it even in Asian logic, by the way. I cannot find the idea of the individual, I should say. Individual, no, not the individual precisely, but the idea of personhood. That there's a dignity of the person. I cannot find that in, I'd say, Asian philosophy. So I think the simplest way, although it's complex, yes, it's complex, the simplest way that I can attribute the idea of a human dignity really did stem from Christianity. Because even in ancient Greeks, I cannot find that there. The Master of Master wants to believe in heaven. That I find suspicious because he wants to destroy. Didn't he like mention he wants to destroy Kingdom Hearts? Or that was his intent? And Kingdom Hearts is basically ultimate reality, aka Logos, aka the Tao, aka God. So it's more like he wants to make reality a nothing. Superbia. Remember? He's most likely the one assigned with the name Superbia, so the most the highest of all vices or sins instead of pride, so he's pretty much closer to Satan, I would say. To put the world into a nothing. I think that's probably, in some sense, I get a gut feeling that's what Master of Masters is aiming for. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I mean, we don't still have the full breadth of his intent. Xehanort was Xehanort's ultimate intent was not to make a world of nothing, but to think that he can become God. That's what his entire goal was with his pursuit of Kingdom Hearts. He wanted to become God. That's why he's. I find it funny. I wouldn't say I find it funny, but I know with the way our modern world thinks that there's no such thing as God, but that's why it's very difficult. Yeah, I want to see Master of Master's face. That's why it's very difficult to ascertain truly what Xehanort's intent was with regards to his pursuit of Kingdom Hearts. Because I think we've lost sight of what God is. But basically, what he really just wanted with all his excuses in each game, what he just wanted was to become like God. He wanted to become a divine being, more or less. That's why, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, right? Just before it was defeated, Sora told him it was not his decision to make. It was not. It's not that Sora was saying... no, Sora was agreeing in some way that things are fated. But it's not in Xehanort's hands to orchestrate fate, I should say. So, Kingdom Hearts sort of differs from a lot of anime stories that says, fuck fate! Because Kingdom Hearts really relies on the idea of fate. For example, the Pabu. That's pretty much a fated thing. Common symbolism with regards to fate. So no, Kingdom Hearts is not anti-fate. pretty Megami Tensei. I'm not too familiar with Megami Tensei, honestly. I used to like anime back in the day, but these days, like again, after being awakened to the thought of ultimate reality, I think a lot of Japanese stories are, pardon my language, but I'd say they're kind of a load of bull, I should say. Because most of them presupposes that there's a nothing. You know, there's an absolute nothing. That which I don't agree with. That's very Buddhist of Japan, I should say. That the ultimate reality is a nothing. That I don't believe. So I don't know. Also, they tend to Japan doesn't help. They tend to misinterpret what Christianity is. They lump it into the same the same idea of Greek mythology and all that. Yeah, definitely some games. I actually think video games have more of a lenient perception of Christianity. Japanese video games, at least. I know Link. I don't play Zelda, but Link was supposed to be Christian, according to the wikis. That's fascinating, I should say. But the thing with Japanese and Christian symbolism is that oftentimes they use the Christian symbolism just to appear cool. But the meaning of what Christianity wants to present, I think that sort of runs amiss with how Japanese think. Oh wow, that was easy. Yeah, shield as a cross. Oh, really? But yeah, I think the Japanese think to misunderstand. But I think Kingdom Hearts really comes close to understanding Christian concepts actually. Very much. Xenoblade. Yeah, I haven't really played them. I don't think I'll be playing them though. Too busy with I'm sort of too busy with my life these days. So the only time I've got for now is for Kingdom Hearts. Oh, this one I like the scene.
友達
そう友達二人組でやかましいのがとな違う今のなし俺が探してる友達は
looking for my friends Riku and Kairi
カイリって言うんだ
探してるリクは友達
うん
カイリは友達
まあ
Look at that. That one's funny. You know how in anime maybe this is the case too with the Western media, but with anime, whenever a character says they're friends, especially between a boy and a girl, when one character says we're friends, I think Kairi felt she got friend zoned here. That's why she's turning around. So in some sense, you already get the feel that Sora and Kairi, contrary to what a lot of vocal fans would want, it's very obvious here that Sora and Kairi really does have a special relationship. Again, I've mentioned it before. The reason that I mentioned it before. Jordan Peterson again says a very good thing about why marriage is between men and women. Was that it? But again, yin and it's again tied to the concept of yin and yang.
友達いる
They always had,
よくわ
right?
かんないけどそこ連れてってよリクとカイリに合わせて
It's tied to the concept of yin and yang because the union of the masculine and feminine
俺空ターザン行く
is, in a sort of way, an attempt to imitate the divine. The Logos attack. Yeah, right. Contrary to the Vocal fans. There's Shion and Namine. It's not going to be Riku, guys.
どこだろうそら大丈夫かな
did she... It kind of looked like she pooped out that thing there. Yes, KH3 practically showed that to us, especially with the sharing of the Papu fruit. So it completes what Kingdom Hearts 1 wanted to start. The union again with Sora and Kairi. Yes, done. With the whole one wing bit. One wing. Remind me what was the one wing a bit. Oh yeah, the one wing! Yes, and Remind, right. Yes, union. In some sense, I do think Kairi got because I do think Nomura, the Kingdom Hearts staff, really did have a plan for Kairi with regards to Kingdom Hearts 1. Because I can really feel Kairi's presence here, unlike the following games, because, you know, Namine and Shion are all different persons. But here in Kingdom Hearts 1, you can feel her presence. And in some ways, because her story was really unresolved after Kingdom Hearts 1, or in Kingdom Hearts 1, it was definitely unresolved. So in some sense, there was definitely a plan for her. Hopefully, like I said, I'm not too. I have low expectations. Come on, you know. You know the usual works. I have low expectations, but hopefully we get more Kairi in the next saga, because it did with Union Cross, because Union Cross Kingdom Hearts Key started with Kairi, actually, right? So in some sense, Kingdom Hearts Key might be a way to make Kairi relevant, because it did seem very heavily connected to her. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to break there. Yes, hopefully, because I do feel it with Kingdom Hearts Key. She has more. I'd say she has more symbolic significance with Kingdom Hearts Key than Riku has. Riku, with Riku's new hairstyle. Riku looks like something to be more of a Verum Rex project, I should say. So there's probably going to be 2 stories that's gonna run with the next saga. There's going to be Verum Rex and resolving Kingdom Hearts Key. That's what I think. How many slides are there again? 4, 5. Yes, Noctis Riku. I'm not sure with the. Because Dominic kind of looks like Stella mixed with Stella and Luna, right? But I wonder if it was just only a thing for Kingdom Hearts 3. Riku's a brother. Maybe. Did I get everything? So I got slide 6. Did I get slide 2? I'm gonna go check a walkthrough. just to be sure what I'm getting because I want to get the slides immediately. Because I think the selection of the slides were, in some sense, deliberately important. Gauge 1, Tarzan, slides. It's not showing up. 6 slides. Gauge 2 wiki, I guess. Seriously? Slide items. Okay, so I get the one at the top, found it in the shaded area to the left. I think I can check how many slides I have here, right? 1, 2, I'm missing slide number 3. Found by the chalkboard. Speed run. Well, it's not exactly a speed run because I'm not running against time, but I do want to skip out most of the grinding parts, I should say, since it seems kind of irrelevant to there you go, to the commentary. I mean, I'm not really commenting for the gameplay, I'm commenting mostly for the story, so skip out the gameplay.
J
ターザン、あら、あなたは？
こんにちは。俺。
まあ、言葉はわかるのね。
Kotoba wa wakaru
って
ne.
ことはターザンの
She's not saying he can speak English, but he can understand
あなたも
words.
調査に？
それも違うようだ。
Oh, by the way, I'm not Japanese. I studied a little bit of Japanese, so I can understand slightly, but not everything.
おかしな連中だ。ゴリラの捕獲には役立ちそうもない。
捕獲じゃなくて調査でしょ、クレイトンさん。学術的な調査よ。でも賑やかなのはいいことじゃない？みんなゆっくり。
Anime J. She looks anime, right? That's what I feel from you. She looks more anime
言っておくけど
than cartoons.
俺は残るぞ。え？
僕らも見つけたんだ。手がかり。
Study the blade. Tried studying Japanese so I could read manga, but I haven't really progressed that far with it. You know, the funny thing with Clayton is that he's a hunter, right? But can he not see Donald Duck and Goofy are animals? I'd say Donald Duck would be right in his line of sight, you know. But yeah, I guess the magic power of whatever powers they have. Wonder what Donald Duck and Goofy looks like to them, because they don't. Because Clayton seems to be assuming they're humans. For now. Look at them. Sorry, Tarzan, but I'm putting Donald Goofy back in. Magic excuse, right? Let's just open it because it's right in front of us. Okay. They probably look like anime dudes. Okay, so let's talk. She's in the jungle with the gorillas. He still isn't teaching, but he's learning. So hey, you're looking for friends. Projector. Yeah. Like I said, I did some procrastinating research prior to the stream. They call this a magic lantern, I guess. To us, an ancient piece of projector. This one! And the reason why I think the selection of the slides are very important, because I watched the video Tarzan, and there's actually a lot of slides that appeared in Tarzan. So as to the reason, I'm probably just gonna give my guess with regards to the meaning behind the slides. But the first slide The Oreo dressed as Goofy. what would Donald look like then? But anyway, I'm probably just gonna guess. Probably, yeah, making comments. Like I said, it's a commentary project. It's not truly a formal analysis or anything. Just my comments, what my idea is, what might be the reason for choosing this, my conjectures. So with the slides, the first slide definitely, I think this appeared in Tarzan, but I think it looked different in Tarzan. There were like a lot of other buildings by the sides, but this ones were a bunch of trees in there. So in some sense, the idea that Kyrie came from Hollow Bastion, I mean, there were already hints here in the game, once you get to Hollow Bastion, I believe. But Kyrie was definitely supposed to be a resident of this land here. So, see, because nothing, right? The place just looks familiar. So Kyrie was definitely planned to be a resident of Hollow Bastion in some form, because again, Kyrie is in Sora's heart. Yes, it reminds. It is supposed to be a representation of Hollow Bastion or Radiant Garden, the castle in there. But there was already a castle slide back in Tarzan. It just looks different from here, I believe. Yes, I've never been off my island. So this is Kyrie's memories or Kyrie's feelings flowing through Sora. Now, the selection of the following slides, these slides here all came from the movie, actually. So, but there were a lot of different slides, so I'm guessing as to why these slides are selected, because they look far more relevant to to the overall overarching theme of Kingdom Hearts 1. So here we've got a guy and a woman, romantic stuff. My gut feeling definitely it represents Sora and Kyrie. They have that tension with them, romantic tension, I should say, and that's very much completed in Kingdom Hearts 3 with their sharing of the Apple Fruit. And here we've got, you see here, that's why I think this is very important. Their selection of slides really sort of hints a lot of Kingdom Hearts stories. The theme, running ideas for Kingdom Hearts. Because here we've got, looks like an old woman because she's wearing a dress and holding up a child. So again, Kyrie's grandma appeared here. So in some sense, this also reflects Kyrie's memories here. That. On the other hand, the gorilla, the gorilla here. I think this one was deliberately placed here to, like, offshoot the symbolisms. I don't think the gorillas, if the gorillas symbolize something here, probably symbolizes the world of Tarzan. Because it's strange. I mean, there's not really much of a relation with the idea of the monkey here in Kingdom Hearts. It's probably just there as a bonus. Then the next one we've got is a ship. You know what they're trying to build right in the beginning? Destiny Islands? Well, not really a ship, but a boat, but the idea is the same. It's a way to travel away from their homeworld. So that's what we got, a ship here. And the ship now took on the form of a gummy ship, I believe. So that's not a coincidence. And then lastly, we've got two men holding a weapon. Whatchamacall that? Fencing, yes, fencing. I guess this is obvious. It represents a set. I think that's way too far off from the scope of Kingdom Hearts. But I guess in retrospect it could be that. But I don't think the creators thought of anything about it back in Kingdom Hearts 1. Anyway, so we've got the fencing. The fencing clearly represents that conflict between Sora and Riku. To two young, I would say boys, because Sora and Rico are not men yet. So two boys running fighting. So yeah, the selection of the slides, in some sense, has that relational meaning to Kingdom Hearts 1. So I find it interesting.
どこにいるんだ？参ったな。
Yeah, lots of foreshadowing or lots of relational meaning to the overall story. I think, yeah, Kingdom Hearts 1 different. Let me pause and let them talk. Let the cutscene talk first.
ターザンは隠してるわけじゃ。
案内してくれるだろうね。君の家だよ。家。
でもいいのターザン？
ターザン、カーチャック、会う。
カーチャック？
群れのボスのことだろう。ちょうどいい。俺も同行しよう。何せジャングルは危険だからな。
So with Kingdom Hearts 1, I think, because the following games, with Chain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2, when they went to the Disney Worlds really seemed disconnected from the story of Kingdom Hearts itself, the main story. And even Birth by Sleep is sort of disconnected. But Days, Dream Drop Distance, and Kingdom Hearts 3 definitely fell in line, sort of. But it's not the same, but it sort of felt similar to what Kingdom Hearts 1 did. That there's a running theme occurring to them. But it's more clear actually in the later games. In Kingdom Hearts 1, I'd say Sora. The difference is that Sora felt really much like he's within the world of Disney. The next games really kind of because as Kingdom Hearts made or paved its way as its own story, they did sort of make an invisible separation with the Disney story and the main story. Although Kingdom Hearts 3 definitely tried to remediate this. Like the only world that I felt in Kingdom Hearts 3 that felt really separate from Kingdom Hearts, the main story, was probably Frozen. Because there's not a lot of interactions in there. Again, I think there were some, executive meddling in there that Frozen doesn't really want. Frozen wants to upheld their image, so the Kingdom Hearts staff, Nomura can't really do. It's like Nomura is the only Kingdom Hearts staff, but most of the Kingdom Hearts staff can't really do much with the Frozen world. The good thing with the old movies is that, there's not really any executive anymore to go about, so there's less restrictions in there. I should have equipped Scan, I believe. Let me equip Scan first. That's a good idea to equip here. Ooh, Sonic Blade. That's like my favorite. How to play Birth by Sleep. Sonic Blade action. Where am I supposed to be going? Oh yes, Kerchak. Yeah, KH3 is a lot more connected, definitely. I feel much more coherence with it. But, it's kind of difficult for other players, especially those who only play the main games, because they're gonna be lost. Is this the right place? No, I believe there's a vine here somewhere. Yeah, they're gonna be lost for people who didn't play the other side games, spin-off games. Union Cross, I skipped out on the Disney Worlds because you had the option to ignore it on YouTube. But when I first played it, the story that tried to like connect, definitely the main story and but you know what? Union Cross story, the fillers were too long, so it's sort of worth ignoring. So I'm just jumping straight through the main story with Union Cross. Good old Everglow. Or even Cage Insider did it, so, you know. With regards to translation, I'd say Cage Insider definitely has a better translator, I should say. But Everglow's fine too, because I think he compiled the whole thing, right? That's good. Although he used his own translation.
僕は彼らの力になりたい。
僕は。
なんて言ってるの？さあ。
ガチャック。ガチャック。
Okay, to the treehouse we go. Yeah. With Tarzan. Not sure if we, Tarzan by itself is maybe that's a sign that I should stop talking. Tarzan. What does Tarzan have in relation to Kingdom Hearts? I know definitely I have a lot to say with regards to Greek heroes, because that's much more related to Ultimate Reality. But with the yeah. Okay, I'll pause whenever there's a cutscene.
待ってカーチャック、聞いてくれ。
What's her name again? She's such a cute girl.
俺はただ、そう、あのゴリラの足元にヘビがいたんだ。むしろあいつを助けてやったんだよ。
Yeah, with regards to Tarzan, I'm not sure if there's anything much related with Tarzan. I might have to collect my thoughts with it, with how it's related to the story of Kingdom Hearts, I should say, or its running themes for Kingdom Hearts 1. Because Kingdom Hearts 1 definitely does not on the staff's mind that this will have a sequel. Nomura was definitely probably banking on it with the ending, but everyone else were not, I believe. But let's see though what Tarzan has to hold. But Tarzan by itself, still keep forgetting. Yeah, but with regards to Tarzan by itself, without Kingdom Hearts, definitely there's the I'd say running theme with Tarzan that matches again. Is that a tiger? With ancient, not necessarily ancient, but
クレイトンさんなんてことしたの？
だから誤解だよミス・ジェーン
Miss Jane and Miss. Subtitle says Miss Porter, but the Japanese says Miss Jane. So it's strange, right? Because I know British had the conception of British people. At least back in the day, they also tend to be formal. So addressing last names should be fitting, but Japanese, well, not just Japanese, but plenty of Asian countries address people by their last names. So it's strange why they're using Miss Jane here.
だったわけじゃなくて
あなたは二度とゴリラたちに近づ
She
かない
looks
で。
more anime here.
そんなたかがゴリラ一頭に大げさなあくそこの俺があんなガキと小娘にゴリラともめ必ず捕まえてやるぞ一頭残らずだ何としても居場所を突き止めて
Anyway, what's my thought process again? Oh yeah, regarding the story of Tarzan.
ハートレス
Monkeys! Monkeys versus gorillas!
どうだ
So, the story of Tarzan sort of resembles that same pattern that you find in romance stories. In romance stories directed towards women. Why is it the same pattern? By the way, it's not... I don't think it's made up, by the way. Again, it's sort of... I really... Because it's very much, again, patterned in metaphysics, religious thoughts. That's what I said, that's my grounding. The idea of a wild, untamed person, the one who explained the taming part, the one that explained that the best is Jordan Peterson. Again, watch his videos regarding. I'd recommend looking at his videos with his interpretation with Disney stories, because there's a good grasp with it. Because this was, I think, is that because in romance stories, you know, have you noticed in romance stories, the guys that women want and romance stories written by women, it's usually the bad boy types. It's usually the bad boy types, and Jordan Peterson again makes a comment about this. It's with regards to the idea that the masculine is sort of a fettered energy, ball of energy that can spiral out of control, and that in some sense women writing the stories wherein they they turned the bad boy to a good man. In some ways it runs to the pattern of stabilizing that unfettered ball of energy to something being whole, I should say. Or a love triangle. But typically it's usually the bad boy that wins the heart of the girl. At least I've noticed from my shoujo manga that's the case. but anyway, that's sort of the idea behind it. Again, there's really that running pattern towards it, because in some ways it matches again the history of man. Like I said before, the ancient Greeks, the ancient people, not just Greeks, with the Romans, Japanese, Chinese, all that. They were wild in some sense to us. They are wild beasts. And what honed them in such a way was a Christian philosophy, thought. So in some ways, the idea of taming man sort of came, again, it did seem like it stemmed under Christian beliefs. Because I've noticed this, I don't know, because I only find this in American women, by the way. I don't think people from where I came from, the idea of making a bad guy turn to good guy. That is, I don't really hear that from where I came from, but I see this a lot with American women. That, you know, the turning the bad guy to good guy. That's basically an attempt to imitate again Christian thoughts. For this Christ, in some ways, the tamed the beast. But which I think is very futile, by the way. Why would you attempt? It's futile because, in a sense, again, our current world right now, there's that very atheistic strain to it. There's an abandonment of the highest ideal. So what in the world are you going to tame a person? Are you trying to civilize a person without the basic foundations of what is good? And there's a sense of pride, arrogance. Yes, there's a sense of arrogance with the way American women, the Western women, think that they could change guys by themselves. Because I don't think a mere person could change another. Unless they are God. with my sudden religious 180, I think it's very arrogant to think that one person could change another unless they're of a divine strain, or they have a religious foundation, I should say. And it requires really a lot of training. It's not just a simple matter that I can magically change another person. So yeah, there has to be things grounded to reality. No one can. Nature can. And nature would. If you can't ride the tide of the heavens, might change you for the worse. So that change is constantly occurring. That's what I think. That, I believe, is the pattern of the Tao, the pattern of God, the pattern of Logos. Heraclitus makes a comment of it. There's always a constant change that's occurring to reality. So yes, a person can definitely change, but the problem is, what direction are they going to change to? Is it going... Because there's only actually... Contrary! I'm quite a contrarian here. Contrary again to the modern perspective that it's a spectrum, I don't believe it's a spectrum for mankind, definitely, because there's... Again, I agree with the thought of the corrupt nature of mankind, that our nature become corrupted. Because there's only really, when you look at metaphysics, there's only really two things that's going on. Yes, there's only two things. It's either Someone, I forgot who said this, but he basically said there's only two things. It's only God or nothing. So, so yes, that's the only two directions we have. So it's either God or nothing. So the question is, what would the person change into? Because change is constantly occurring. Are they gonna change to become nothing, or, well, since man can't really become God, cannot, unless, you know, the promise of Christianity does occur. The closest to be God is to become closer to God. Not exactly to become God, but closer. As I believe that is the case. Closer to the Logos, closer to the Tao, same thing. So that's, yes, that's why I don't think no one can change a person. There will be things that will always constantly change. So the question is, what direction are we changing to? Nothing or divine? I'm quite a contrarian. Sorry about that. What was that movie? Treehouse, protect the gorillas. Yes. So yeah. Because I really don't believe there's a spectrum for man, because man cannot become completely two things. It cannot exactly completely become, well, it can become complete nothing, but it cannot completely become the divine. So that's where the spectrum comes in. Oh no, my money! Were those all my monies? Philosophy and Tarzan. It's not just Tarzan, actually Disney stories very much. That's why they're actually very deep. I think I mentioned it in Alice in Wonderland. or theology, actually. That's the modern conception. The hating on on like the idea of Snow White and kissing to wake up by guy, because that in some ways again represents, I mentioned it in Alice in Wonderland, I believe, in my playthrough. That again represents the idea, because again all that exists is considered effeminate. So even men as in the male humans are, with respects to the divine, because the divine is the masculine, with respects to the divine, all of mankind is considered the feminine. So the idea of Snow White and then kissing the guy, kissing the prince, kissing royalty, is to wake up. Is in some sense again that intersection with the divine and the not divine. It's fascinating. Disney stories in some ways are very deep, and that's why I don't think Nomura or whoever the writers are too naive about Kingdom Hearts. That's why I say Kingdom Hearts is very close to Christianity. Because a lot of even the main story, particularly once we get through the later games, it's very close to the conception of achieving what is divine, truly. Friendship is just one part of it, I should say. Yeah, but basically, yeah. I know it's pretty difficult to talk with regards to with all the politics that's going on in modernity. It's hard to talk about why. Because I talked about this with my brother yesterday or a few days ago. Cliff. That the reason why the Catholic Church is very adamant on not approving I don't wanna. Should I say that? I'm gonna say it. They still don't approve, you know, the alphabet marriage. Sad because, again, like I said, the masculine and the feminine is again an imitation of. That marriage is an imitation of. Peterson. Peterson said this too. Gosh, watch him with regards to symbolism. He really comes close to it. Actually, marriage is in a way an imitation of, again, logos, divine. So that's why Catholics are adamant. Yes, take care. I know. Well, whatever. I'm just gonna say what's on my mind. That's why they're sort of adamant on not approving it. Well, if... Wow, there's two of them! There's usually only one. But yeah, they're quite adamant. Yeah, they're quite adamant on not approving the alphabet marriage, simply because, again, masculine, feminine, representation of the divine. So don't fall there. So that's pretty much the explanation of it. So why was I talking about it? Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much the discussion of, because they represent abstract, I should say, symbols in some sense. Masculine symbols, abstract meanings. So even see it when you see traditional, for example, when you see the way, I don't know how other countries do it, but in typical Christian marriages, you see how the masculine, the male, wears black clothes while the bride usually wears white clothes. And even in Japan, the traditional marriage also has them wear the same colors, black and white. In Korea, if you look at the traditional marriage too, they usually wear blue and red. Again, it represents, it's very clear in Asian cultures, by the way, because yes, black and white. It's very clear in Asian cultures because plenty of them have adopted the symbol of the Tao. And the Tao again represents the yin and yang, and the yin represents the feminine, and the yang represents the masculine. So again, you can see that divine pattern symbolisms in them. And in some ways, that's why I think it's something that's missing from the West, I should say. They lack that all-encompassing symbol that could represent divine reality that the Asians have. Ah! Whoa! I should not press. Ah! Hey. Okay. Yeah, they lack that. I know they have that encompassing symbol, but it's been because the way theology is in the West, they're very, very complex as opposed to the way the East presents its theology. And they present their theology simply in a poetic manner, as opposed to how in the West, especially with Greek, starting with philosophy first, there's a lot of details in there that you get lost to the very simple things. But actually, yes, the West has that representations of, again, divinity between the masculine and the feminine, or the union of them. That's an imitation of the divine. It's in there, but it probably got lost in the details. And in some sense, the cross represents that, but it's not as clear as the yin and yang again. it only becomes clear. That's why you have to like sort of wade through a bunch of Christian studies. Not just Christian studies, but philosophical studies, metaphysics, and even the way the ancients thought. So you have to wade through that to even get the all-encompassing symbols, as opposed to ancient China, which they've got a cheat sheet with the symbol of the yin and the yang. It's all in there. There's a tree house, right? Tree house. Yeah, that's pretty much, again, in relation to the divine. And how did we get here? How did we get to that thought process? Because yes, oh yeah, because it wasn't taming. In a sense, taming a person, taming mankind is in a sense, again, it goes back to religious speak, religious thought process, and very grounded on Christian again. Because once again, I don't see this. Well, you could say it in some sense. No, it's not probably grounded in Christianity. There's ancient cultures have this. Because Confucianism is in such a way, something like that. The idea to like what should be the proper mode of being of man. Multiple philosophies attempted to answer it, but I think still the best one to answer it properly would be Christianity. Growing up in an Asian culture, I don't really have much. Growing up in an Asian culture, definitely the prioritization of the Asian mind, I should say, sorts of runs amiss, I should say. It kind of really matches the old thoughts. There's that sort of cruel thought process to it. But yeah, when I look at start kind of asking questions, where did these things come from? The idea of respecting human dignity? Yeah. Still could not perfect that. Yes, I'm far from Brazil. Yeah. But I was born in the Philippines, so in some sense, I would say we have much more in common than the Philippines has with other Asian countries. You know, with all this colonial things that occurred. But there's definitely some, in some sense, because I was listening to this podcast a few days ago, and the reason why the American decided to continue with their colonization of the Philippines instead of letting it as it is, one of the reasoning of the president was because the Philippines was not Christian, and yet Spanish, Spain, I believe Brazil was held by Portugal, right? But in the same essence, they were still Christians. But anyway, the reason why America decided to continue with their colonization with the Philippines was because they believed the Philippines was not Christian, even though it is a Catholic nation by the time the Americans came because of Spain. But in some sense, I sort of get now what the American president was trying to say. Because again, despite being Catholic country, a Christian country, there's still some remnants of a very... So I believe, here's... the top people of our country are not actually the ones in political power. They're not actually pure Filipinos. They're not from the pure Malayan, Indo-Malayan strain, as what our history would tell us for the Philippines, but they're mostly actually stemming from Chinese. They mostly have Chinese ancestry, I should say. And so a bunch of Chinese thought does still come into play in Philippine society. So in some sense, that's why I don't think that's why I have a high opinion in some sense with Asian philosophy, the ancient one, especially the Taoism. But what follows, the logic that follows after that, especially Confucianism, because Confucianism, I should say, it did try to do good, but in some ways it matched what the ancient Greeks did. Ancient Greeks, ancient Romans, the focus on the family and all that. But in the end, those ancient strains of thoughts all collapse into, in some sense, the loss of human dignity, human individual dignity, the dignity of the personhood. Because if you do prioritize family, and then who is the basis of what is good and right? Is it the family or what is ultimately good and all that? Which in some sense, the Christianity brings that back forth again. The question of what is good and right, it's kind of brought forth that. So yeah, that's why I have in some sense some kind of a love and hate relationship with the Asian thought. Philosophy? Because it's not really philosophy, according to my philosophy professors. It's not yet philosophy. It's pre-Socratic philosophy. It's in the same vein, I should say. I have some respects to it, but again, I still find Christianity worth following. Well, let's go to Clayton. Where is Clayton? I don't know how it is though in other countries, like Brazil, but I do know about the Americas. Was the Aztec? Slightly, that's what I know, slightly. Wow. Maybe I shouldn't have wasted my mana there. But yeah, I think a lot of the ancient pre-Socratic, pre-Christian thoughts, pre-Christian philosophies, a lot of them ultimately end up to only two things. Either the human individual, human personhood gets sucked into the mass collective, or they become, or things ultimately end up being a nihilism of sorts, which is what we have now in the modern world is Buddhism. There's the nihilistic end to it. Because actually, again, ancient thoughts, Romans, Greeks, they actually have the same, they had that similar philosophy, I believe, with Buddhism, but that sort of got thrown away once Christianity came into the picture. Like the Aztec. Wow! In the Philippines, there's none. There's only... It's not like we're pretty... It's not like how it is presented in what happened to the Americas? That they were heavily destroyed, I believe, by the Western powers. With the case of the Philippines, there's pretty much nothing that nothing would. I would say Destiny Islands would be like a fitting theme to. Philippines would match Destiny Islands a bit more. If the Western powers did not occupy Philippines, nothing would have happened. That's what I think. A bunch of nothing would happen. Things would still be, you know. People would still be living in huts. That's what I believe. Because yeah, unlike Indonesia, because Indonesia and Malaysia has this, they have temples. They have temple ruins with them. But in the Philippines, by the time Spain came here, there was a bunch of nothingness. There's not really any ancient ruins around here. It's a bunch of trees, sea. It's pretty much, yeah. It's, I would say it's kind of like Destiny Islands in the Philippines. Hey, where's Clayton? I thought Clayton would be here. Where'd he go? Am I missing something? In Brazil? But still, there were civilizations in there, like the Aztec and Inca, like you said. So there was something going on in here. Although, did ultimately end up in a sort of, again, like a nihilistic state. Which, I think if the Philippines were allowed to continue as it was before, if, like, the Spanish had not invaded, I think it would have become like... yeah, there are probably more human sacrifices, tales of human sacrifice in there. I mean, there's already tribes around that did it. But... oh, okay, Tarzan near treehouse. Okay. Let's go to the treehouse. Yeah. That's my basic thoughts. Had Spanish not came into the Philippines, it might have ended up something like, definitely something like Aztecs, I guess. But then again, it's like actually very closer to Destiny Islands, Philippines is, simply because there's not really much of a unity going on in there, unlike the case of the Incas and the Aztecs, because they were able to build a whole civilization with it. Hey, where's the jump next? Yeah, pretty much like a bunch of nothingness would happen. Because by the time around 1500, 1600s, Japan was already stabilizing by 1600s, and most of the East Asian countries were not going to help the rest of the world. It's very clear that they were going for an isolationist policy. That they didn't want anything to change. It was the coming of the Western powers, which again, that is already steeped. It's very steeped in Christianity. Where was I going? Where am I going? Yeah, it's very steeped in Christianity, and the idea with Christianity is that there's that running, again, I mentioned it in the Destiny Islands review video with Travis Town parts. There's that running theme with Christianity with regards to change. That things will have to continue changing. Prior to that, the idea of immortality, the idea of what is divine, is not to change. A stable sort of thing. Yes, I'm lost in the forest! Where am I going? Ah, there you go. Yeah. Well, things I don't really say on Twitter. I'm saying here on YouTube. Controversial things I'm saying. Maybe I should rename this this commentary project to a follow the trees. No, I can't tell. But yeah, maybe I should rename my commentary project to Cubase-san saying controversial things that might get her burned on Twitter. Since nobody's watching my videos. Controversial Q. Very much. Because what I'm really saying is controversial now. Maybe it wasn't really so much controversial back in before 2010. But you know, I was probably a kid back in 2010, so I couldn't have thought this. I was sort of an agnostic before. But thanks to my philosophy classes, I got bitch slapped in the face. That relativism cannot be real. And actually, the god that Christianity is talking about is basically just a Tao. Which I've actually respected. In some sense. Come on, I sort of fell into the trap of, you know. Cubase-san. Yeah, you watch. Thank you. It's something I don't say on Twitter. Actually, I kind of write a lot of tweets. I compose things. Sentences that I compose for Twitter, but I just don't send it. I don't push the send button and then just erase it. Because most of them are controversial. And I think it's something... I get a feeling that after Tumblr started censoring things, The Gates of Hell was released. And it poured down to Twitter. That's what I felt like. So, can't really speak much on Twitter regards controversial thoughts. But whatever, man, whatever. I'm just gonna say what's on my mind. It's pretty difficult to actually self-censor yourself. Counter Q. Counter. Yes, it's very difficult to self-censor yourself without lying to yourself, I should say. Read off. Anti-QA. Hopefully people won't. Hopefully I won't. Ooh, there. Ooh. Hopefully I won't get popular enough where people would use my words against me. Because that seems to be a thing, you know, with popular people. But hopefully, I mean, I have ambitions of writing stories and that will become popular, but with what I'm doing right now, that I'm putting my I'm putting my image on the line. Well, yeah, stay true to yourself. Basically, I'm also just commenting with regards to how things were in the past, so it's not like I subscribe to everything other than you. I'm a Christian. And there are still topics that I don't want to discuss. I did touch on the alphabet, you know. But it's not like... But I'm only touching on what church views, but as to what I view, I'm staying silent on it. That thing I'll probably keep to my grave. Alright, yeah, get some sleep. Wait, was I supposed to go to the treetop or? Yeah, yep. And anyway, I'm almost done with Tarzan, I think. Yeah, popular people have to be careful and they have to follow. You know, there's that again. There's that universalizing thing that's going on with. What do we do? There's that attempt to universalize thought process with celebrities right now with their censoring, but they have to follow the same pattern, which again that runs. The Bible, Christianity warrants this again. The Bible, even Jews warrants this. The attempt to universalize without divine guidance is a bad idea. Yep. See ya. I'm almost done anyway. I think I'm almost done. So I think I ramble on a lot. Yeah, I'm almost done. Should be finished. I think I ran my course for 2 hours. Yeah, definitely have to follow a pattern. There's like a pattern to things. But yeah, take a sleep. Here I'm almost done here anyway, so yeah. But anyway, I think I drifted far off from the theme of Tarzan. But yeah, because Tarzan is basically, in some sense, again, in relation to what is beast, what is untamed and what is considered civilized. Although I don't know how much is this related to humans. Yeah, was it? Thank you. This pretty chill too with an audience. I think, yeah, I'll do it in my next video. Because I think I have a general idea what Tarzan means now to Kingdom Hearts. Because in some sense, it's again related to... God, this is creepy, you know? He's flying by himself. Look at that. This looks like he's controlled, possessed. But anyway, as to probably gonna formulate what I think about why Tarzan. May your heart be your guiding key. Yes, thank you. You too! Technically, I think may your heart be your guiding key is sort of an incomplete thought process, but yeah, in some sense. Definitely. I'll comment about may your heart be your guiding key eventually once I reach Kingdom Hearts 3. But yeah. So in some sense now, if I'm gonna finish the stream, let me connect why Tarzan is a bit connected to Kingdom Hearts. In some sense, it's sort of connected to the idea of formation. Forming. Kind of like how Olympus Coliseum goes about it. Because again, the theme is with Tarzan, there's the beastly man, so there's the chaotic form, which again goes back right into Aristotle, potentiality, or Plato. I don't know who it is. Again, I didn't study them too in depth. I just have a general idea on what they are. But the starting point. The starting point of the universe. Reality is that at first there may be. Let me write. Taking on the spot is pretty difficult, I should say. Formulating things on the spot. Because two things are running, because I don't want my thought regarding chaos. Why chaos cannot be a pure chaos. Why there's no such thing as pure chaos. Because I'm getting it now. And why there can only be order, truly, and that pure chaos is merely what is hidden. But in some sense, anyway, that relates to potentiality. The story of Tarzan sort of relates to potentiality and towards actualizing. There's that form. Things taking its true form, I should say. Because the idea of man being a beast-like, is not. It's not really what is being a man. Not just man. Mankind. That's not really the true form of mankind, in some sense. So in some sense, the idea of taming, the idea, I mentioned it before, the idea of taming, that imagery of the divine taming mankind, is the idea of honing itself. And I actually recommend reading this manga, also manhwa, Chinese manhwa. Although it's been, dropped because of a dispute with the author and the publisher. But one of the characters mentioned this in the story. The writer alludes to this, that the world is in some sense a furnace to which you get formed to become, because a furnace back in the day, probably not back in the day, probably in stories that we have now, the idea of a furnace in stories, especially set in an ancient setting or setting, pre-modern setting, the idea of a furnace is where you shape a blade, right? Make a blade. So in some sense, the furnace hones a material to become a blade. So the idea of taming, the idea of man being tamed, is just some sort that's similar analogy to be tamed to what truly is to become a man, mankind. I'm talking about in general mankind. To be honed, to be what kind of what mankind should be, instead of being a beast. So there's that attempt to hone. Yeah, my mistake though. It's not just pre-Christian. It's not just Christianity, but there were a lot of other philosophies that tried to attempt to hone what being a man should be. But the best one I still see is a Christian theology grounding, I should say. Christian furnace. They still have the best one with regards to furnaces out there. But yeah, so how this relates in Kingdom Hearts 1 to become its true form, Sora, being a junior hero, is being formed. In some sense, it kind of shows, maybe there's like disjointed pattern to this. It's probably my conjecture here that Sora is in some sense being honed to become what it means to become a Keyblade Master. So yeah, basically what Tarzan is, I should say, my guess is. It's quite different with the Olympus Coliseum and Alice in Wonderland, where there's like a definite running thought process to it. With Tarzan, I feel like this was generally added as a fun world. I don't think there's really a running thought process to it, but if that's pretty much my guess, if there is a running thought process to it. That is, in some ways, it's related to honing oneself. As Tarzan becomes a man, honed, civilized, so too is Sora, honed as a Keyblade Master. Although the term Keyblade Master here is very different from Birth by Sleep. Birth by Sleep takes on a different meaning. Since then, the term Keyblade Master has never been the same. Again, the World Tree. The World Tree from All Things STEM. Again, it's anime likes this, fantasy anime likes this. The idea of Yggdrasil. Fascinating. And I get it. The idea of flocking, negate. And World Tree is a representation of the divine back in the past. The ground of being. That? No heart, no sea friends. No soul, again heart. Kind of again, the idea of heart in Kingdom Hearts actually much more closely resembles to, in English, it's Kokoro probably in Japanese. Kokoro in Japanese, definitely. Although it symbolizes, they use the symbol of the heart for Kokoro. But the way they use the idea of Kokoro, it sounds closer to the conception of soul in Western philosophy, I should say. Western philosophy was Western religious thinking of mysticism. I'm jumbling up the terms because I have no idea which one it falls into. But yeah, no heart, no soul, basically no essence. A soul is the essence of things within existence. So having no friends with no heart, no soul, because friends represents relations. So that's fascinating. No hearts, no soul, no relations. Nothing to ground oneself in the world. All for one, one for all. Yeah, the World Tree. What did I say about the world tree?
ドナルドが気に入ったみたいね、彼女。
Kanojo. The idea of the world tree. What was made disjointed thoughts about it? Disjointed thoughts. Divine. Ah, yeah, it's fascinating how it's related. The block is in the world tree. Because again, I think I showed in my grounding video once again that the keys for Kingdom Hearts very much represents. I don't know. It very runs parallel into Peter's keys. The gate to unlock heaven and the gate to lock the one who holds locks to the keys of heaven. Gates of heaven. And in some sense, the key locking the world tree, as again world tree, again was the representation of Logos in ancient times prior to Christianity, pagan mythology, I guess.
あのハンターが呼び寄せたのさ。あの男の強い欲望が
So, yeah.
ハートレスどもの餌食となった。少々餌をやりすぎてしまったようだけどね。
Ah, the heart. I really like that symbol right over there.
ハートレス。あの男のような脆い心で扱える代物ではない。問題は少年の方だ。ついに鍵穴まで見つけおった。
何？他の鍵穴を見つけるにはまだ時間がかかろう。それにもう一つの目的に気づいている様子もない。
Onto the throes of nature. And well, again, like to make a comment again. Maleficent. Like I said, Peterson already made a comment about this. Maleficent, the women. That's the reason why there's always that evil women in some sense in fairy tales, as a contrast to the pure woman. In some sense, they represent Mother Nature. I would say it's cruel. I would say it's evil. It's more like they're cruel. Did Maleficent do something by the end? What happened to her in Sleeping Beauty? I don't remember.
彼らの手に集まりつつある。そして今また一人。
So again, yeah, basically, Maleficent basically represents the cruelty of Mother Nature. Mother Nature and the Heavenly Father. Parents fighting, maybe. Okay, so I'll end the stream right after their dialogue and save. Because that's pretty much it. We finish 2 worlds. Although Olympus Coliseum is short. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Save. The 10. So I'm saving right here, and then the next world will be going back to Traverse Town, I believe, and do some stuff in there. Again, I checked up earlier on what Traverse Town has to offer, and I believe there's nothing really much going on in there other than to continue to move the plot, I should say, but there's nothing really symbolic, I guess, or depth and meaning for the story of Kingdom Hearts. I think most of the main story, depth of the main story comes in later, once Riku really starts coming into the picture. So yeah. thank you guys for watching, and yeah, thank you all. Thank you all. That was a great stream. I appreciated it. May your heart be your guiding key, but I think it's incomplete because it lacks. Should I say it? Should I say it? Should I say it? Well, when Kingdom Hearts Union Cross back cover comes into the picture, I will talk about it. No spoilers in that. Alright. Thank you very much, guys, and have a nice day. The next stream will be tomorrow at the same time, 5:30 p.m. And see you guys there. Thank you very much. The upcoming streams, though, I'm not so sure, because like I said, I'm thinking of not doing streams anymore, but instead posting videos. It's much more, I guess, easy for me to make as opposed to finding time for streaming. But anyway, thank you guys, and hope to see you guys all tomorrow. Bye.